Richards Bay. We would then make stops at Durban and Port Elizabeth, and finally spend the last 2 days in Cape Town. Susie and Lacey had scoured several brochures from each of these stops, and I was certain Frank and I had our days booked solid. But back to the present. As the horizon began to lighten further, I noticed a solitary man, 30 yards to my left. In the soft glow resonating from the cabin lights, the man's skin shone a midnight black. That the man was alone was not an oddity. I mean, here I was by myself. I was within relative proximity to my fat friends, but I'd come out here alone. But the fact that I hadn't seen the man before was odd. I should mention that the Oceanic Afrikaans was a small luxury cruise liner which, according to Susie, was home to 208 guests, mostly American with the occasional European or Australian thrown in the mix. The point I'm driving at here is that the Afrikaans was an intimate setting, and over the course of the past week I'd had a conversation with, said hi to, or at the very least taken notice of every guest on the ship. That was until now. There was a slim chance the man was part of the 164-person crew, which was multinational, and according to the county of origin listed underneath each crew member's badge, had more countries represented than the last Olympics. But I'd encountered most of those people as well, and I would have recognized this guy. For one, he wasn't South American black or Caribbean black, as were most of the black crew members. He was African black, which was the single continent of the HR department of the Oceanic Afrikaans had neglected when hiring for their African crews. This should not have mattered, but again it did. And second, the man's left ear appeared to have been badly burned, melted down to a small asymmetrical mass. The man was dressed in khaki slacks with an accompanying white button-down. A bit overdressed, seeing as how it was already a baking 78 degrees. But then again, he could easily be used to 120-degree heat in the shade, or wherever people go to hide from the lions. All sweeping generalizations aside, he had one of those cheap black watches on his wrist, a Casio or a Timex, and he checked it 6 times in the 3 minutes since he'd arrived. Because I'm one of the friendliest people on the planet, I yelled at him, "Don't worry, it's coming." Actually, I'm not that friendly, but this lone man leaning against the railing, looking repeatedly at his watch, was making the hair on my arms stand on end, and I wanted to see how he would react. I was probably just being paranoid, which I should point out I'm very good at. The African man glanced in my direction but said nothing. I prodded, "The sun! Don't worry, it's coming. It's one of the few things that never disappoints." He made no reaction, and I figured I might as well be speaking Latin. What matters is that I wasn't speaking Swahili or Zulu, or one of those other African languages that sound like someone is trying to purge their Adam's apple. I turned my gaze back to the horizon. A soft halo of red had begun to form over the silent water. It quickly turned into a ring of pink, as if Saturn were rising from the ocean. In the soft light, I noticed 3 small boats. They were miles away, looking like 3 boys drifting in tight formation. Fishing was a billion-dollar industry in South Africa, but I couldn't help wondering why these tiny boats were so far out to sea. Over the course of the next 3 minutes, the sun rose to its full form, and the day officially began. More importantly, the lone black man stopped looking at his watch and appeared to relax. And most importantly, the fishing boats appeared to be even farther away than they had minutes earlier. "Would you like to hit the buffet with us?" Susie Camper asked, turning in my direction. "Now that's more like it," Frank Camper added, turning his frown upside down. I laughed and told them it was a little too early for breakfast. What I didn't tell them was that it was a little too early for me to watch them gorge themselves on plates stacked high with eggs Benedict, bacon, sausage, ham, and various other HDL-clogging delights. Then head back for seconds, thirds, and fourths. I mean, Frank was a great guy, but his blood was probably doing the steeplechase in his veins as we speak. I was more of a Honey Nut Cheerios, grapefruit half, apple juice guy myself, with the occasional chocolate chip Eggo thrown in the mix. At 34, I was feeling the aches and pains most people feel in their 50s. But then again, I'd been running 6 miles every day for the better part of my life, been shot twice, fallen off a cliff into the Atlantic Ocean, collapsed a lung, and most recently, been attacked by a pack of wolves. I didn't need to add bacon to that list. As the campers departed, I watched as Susie grabbed a big chunk of Frank's left buttock, and he draped his large, rotund arm over her shoulder. That, my friends, was close to 500 pounds of true love. This got me thinking about my love.